Well, this is a little different reply than what we usually give to e4. We have not replied with e5, we have not replied with c5, but rather the unusual move of e6. And this is the French defense. So let's primarily consider the idea behind French defense. The idea is really simple. We don't like this pawn here and we want to put pressure onto the e4 square. How do we do it? We put the pressure by throwing a pawn at d5 and then targeting e4. But rather than, playing this particular move, which is the Scandinavian defense, and offering my pawn I'm not continuing on the lines of the Scandinavian defense, but rather trying to imply that this move has like quite really has the option to trade for free because I won't really take it with the queen. Early development of queen might go bad. So that is what we plan. We plan to firstly make the move e6, and then, no matter what, like white will usually reply with d4, and then we plan to make the move d5. So this is the classic opening of the this is the classic system of the French opening, and now from here the opening will diverse into many different branches, and we'll look at each one of them, and in fact even the branches in them. So let's begin with our first branch. So this particular move is not the best for white. The best move, okay, I'll already tell you, the best move for white here by as shown by the ancient is knight to c3. That is this particular move, but we'll handle that later. That's a little more big branch than what we are trying to consider right now. So currently, this is the normal variation of the French defense, but at this point, I mean, okay, imagine you are white. Do you not have this ick to play e5? It looks so good. Like, once you have learned that, okay, trading always is not an ideal option. I mean, yeah, you could have, really traded it and traded back, and yeah, that would have been fine. So that is the probably the most boring variation of it because now I've just traded the e pawns and my e file is open, and now the opening doesn't look as cool as what could have gone to be. So yeah, let's first of all play the advanced variation of it. Now here, probably the best move for you is to play c5. Why? Because you are actually opening your queen side of the board, so that is one thing. Secondly, white can't really take on the c5 pawn. Why? Because I mean, imagine if white does try to take on the c5 pawn. I'll take it with the bishop. My two pawns are developed. My bishop is out. This white pawn is hanging in my half of the board, and he's not really defending it with anything. And no, I mean, look at white. White looks very miserable as compared to black. So, white won't really try to take on my c5 pawn. If he does try to take it, then you are really at a good advantage. So, what else than taking on the c5 pawn? Well, by engine, the best move shown is c3. C3 is a really good move because you have really, maintained your diagonal. If I try to take on this pawn, then you will take me back with the C pawn and um, maintain position in the center. And of course, it helps you open up this queen diagonal as well to, check on my king and everything. So to prevent all of this and to, have pressure on the center. So French defense, what is our our old main ideas of having a good opening. A good opening should help me control the center and help me develop the pieces, but early development of bigger pieces is bad. But we kind of try to ignore the early development part, and we this is also a pretty decent move to make queen to b6. Why? Because now you have controlled the center as well, like you are adding pressure on the d4 square, as well as you are preventing this check. This check is really annoying to me. Bishop could have come to b5 and then given my king a check, and then I'll bring out my knight, and then he'll trade, and then I'll trade. I don't want all of that. I don't want that bishop here. So that is why I, sort of bring my queen here to prevent that bishop check. And after this, there is pretty much the development part itself. This is a general move for white. Bring out knight to f3, will bring out knight to c6. And this is where we'll branch again. From here on, we'll have different moves, and those different moves will lead us to different things. So let's see that. Yeah, so we'll go in the same order. We'll start with relatively good but not the best move for white, and that is okay. Imagine you are white. What would you want to do? You think that okay, some sort of tension is going on in the center, but I do really need to develop my pieces. This particular file is open, so my bishop can really come out, and I could maybe castle. So that is what we imagine white to be thinking about. So that is why bishop to e2 looks pretty normal, and the idea is to castle. But as black, I have built so much tension, and now I don't really want this tension to just waste. So this is where I really use my power, the power that I can create chaos in the game at any point of time, and that is what I start doing. I I start playing offensive so that black doesn't really get white doesn't really get time to castle. And once these moves are done, you can see that the pawn on d4 is not supported by the pawn on c3. That pawn is gone. So we can really attack on it. We do have two pieces attacking on it, and white has two pieces defending on it. So that is why we try to bring a new piece. And so what the idea of this new piece is to, the knight will now come to f5 and then attack on d4. And if knight does come on f5, like let's say knight was on f5, then you didn't really have any possible chance of defending it. So even if I mean you might think that okay, this bishop can come here and defend this pawn, and if you do try to make this move, then I'll have your pawn, and that will be really bad for you. So you don't really do that, and what you essentially do is you bring your knight to a3. So clearly, bringing out the bishop to e3 is not an ideal option because I'll have it here. So rather, what white and like white has to anticipate that okay, this knight will be coming here and then will have my pawn. So that is why white will play the move a3, and that is probably the best move because if I do come here, then the white knight can defend that pawn. So yeah, that was one branch of it. Let us go back a little and consider it again. Another really good reply from White is to maybe come to knight c3. What are the intentions with it? That okay, if you try on taking on my pawn, then I'll threaten your queen, and knight to a4 will be an ideal. All I'm trying to tell you is what all variations could White try to play. So yeah, we began with a lot of different branches, but once we came to this point, to this point, that White decides to try to castle and we try to break the tension. And now the entire game is about this d4 pawn. Can I have the d4 pawn or can I not have the d4 pawn? So yeah, that is what I try to plan, and I am just telling you three different ways White could have tried to defend. If White would have defended like this, then White is at loss. If White would have tried to defend it like this, then White can actually defend on this pawn with bringing the knight back. But another very aggressive variation of it is ki, okay, I don't care about my pawn, I'll have your queen. And that is the one that we are concerned with now. That if he does try to come here and we try to take on this pawn, then he'll threaten my queen away. And what else could I do? Maybe I can give him a check. Maybe I can bring my queen back, or maybe I can bring my queen here. So yeah, those are my three options. And even if I give him a check, then he'll just bring his knight here, and then like the situations might be like this, and now I can't have this pawn because it is like I don't have enough attackers. There is the two queen and a knight, and I have a knight and a knight, so I'm not really taking on that pawn. So yeah, that was one branch of it. Now from this branch, we have to grow to the another one. So yeah, what when did we differentiate? We differentiated when bishop came to e7. Sorry, e2. So yeah, let's go back. Let our bishop not have come out. Now, here we can see that, okay, one was bishop to e2. The other really good move for white is actually pretty random, and that is moving a3. What is the intention behind moving a3? The intention behind moving a3 is, I don't really like the opponent's queen sitting on b6. I I can't really move my bishop out. I want my bishop to develop, but this queen threatening my pawn, I don't like it. And plus, there is a lot of activity here. So, what is White intending to do? White is planning, okay, my king side is safe. I'll later castle there. But currently, let me push black behind very much. So he wants to do this. He wants to push a3 and then maybe make the move b4 and really harm me. So it looks a little threatening, but how do we handle it? Well, one good move, and that you can obviously see that you, in fact, are desperate to play, and that is c4. Why? Because again, it builds your structure as well. And if white does try to make the move b4 now, I can do the en passant thing. So yeah, that's the French move and the French word. So that's what we can do. We can take on this pawn. So white can't really now move b4. So what else option does white have? Well, white can maybe bring his knight here and then really threaten on this pawn. But of course, you won't take it with the knight. My pawn is hanging here. But yeah, let's see a little more. What on the line where we said that okay, knight to d2 is a good option for white. Let white play it. Now, when you can see that our original focus that was on the d4 square. When our pawn was on c5, we were attacking d4. But now our pawn has moved ahead. We have, given up that square kind of. But we are targeting a new square. We are targeting b3. And if I can somehow get my knight in here, then this is a really good square for me because it is attacking, everywhere I want my knight to attack. So yeah, that is what I plan to do, and that is why I make the move knight to a5. Now again, white isn't really scared of my knight coming in here just yet. Why? Because it will just take with the knight. If I take with the queen, he'll take with the queen, and I'll take with the pawn, and nothing else will happen. This pawn will be left hanging here, and nothing else will happen. So yeah, that is what we have seen. So let's say that because white is so non-scared, white decides to bring his bishop out and maybe plan to castle in the next move. Well, the thing that I was saying that if knight comes here and I take and queen takes and then queen takes and then I take and then this is pretty pointless. Nothing good came out of it. So this is something that we will not do. What we would do rather is wait upon this position. If he has bring his bishop out, I'll bring my knight out. I don't care. If he decides to castle, I'll bring my bishop out. So this is called waiting in chess. We wait for the right moment. We have a plan, but we are not executing our plan just yet. And again, he can't really make b4 because of the scared thing of n person. But at this point, what might why try to do, and something that is very sneaky, is bring the rook to b1. If rook comes to b1, then we should be scared because in the pretty next move, if I do this and then this happens, then the same thing doesn't really apply because the rook will take on my queen. So that is our plan. That if rook comes here, then we do really have to go back. But again. Even if we have gone back, it does not really mean that we have given up on this entire pawn structure. White can't really make the move b4 and enjoy because there is a short subtlety to it. I mean, we can try. Let's say that white does decide to play b4. Then clearly, in fact, you might not see it, but I can see that the engine is showing black at a huge advantage by making the move b4. Why? Because I can take on this. If he does decide to take on, with the knight, then I'm not going to take on knight with the knight, but rather I'm going to pin the knight. Now this knight is pinned, and you know that a rook for a knight won't be a good trade. So that is why he has not technically defended his own knight with the rook. So he has to defend it with a lesser valuable piece, and the only possibility is bringing the knight here. So yeah, even if white decides to do that, in all this chaos, what white forgot was that I can take on the pawn with the queen. So that is what we'll do, and we are at an advantage just because of one mistake. And that mistake was done, I don't know, 5 moves ago, and that mistake was making the move b4. So yeah, that was, I think, a little too in-depth thing that we saw, but now you know that bringing the queen behind is not really that bad. In fact, this is not even something that you might remember, but thinking in depths of ideas of thinking in depth is something that might be incorporated by watching this. But yeah, if he does not really push on b4 because white might know that okay, b4 is not that good, then fine, he'll make some different waiting move. He wants to develop pieces, but the position is so locked that developing those pieces isn't really possible. So yeah, that is what he has done, and I don't know. You could make any random move. You could maybe move h6 or bring out your knight to f5 or something like that. So yeah, let's say that we did bring out our knight to f5, then what could white do? White really wants to, come here so that it can attack my knight and have some play. So, you know, uh, getting that knight behind, and that is our cue for bringing our knight in. So we will somehow get the chance to bring our knight in, and that was our main entire idea behind making the move c4. Because c4 really helps me get my knight in, and now I think we are at a decent position to continue the game. And from here, the game will continue on very simply. If this knight comes up, maybe trade here, maybe bring your bishop out, and try to defend this thing that might come up. Also, while castling, you actually have both the options now. You could castle short, but look at this. This wall is so great. In fact, White has himself helped me create a wall. So yeah, this wall is so great that I do want to castle on the right side of the board, even though I do not have pawns here. But long castling might be really helpful here because White has already short castled, and we can now see that a pawn push from this side might be really helpful because there is no pawn push coming from here because great tension and some sort of ceasefire has been declared on the queen side of the board, and king side of the board is more in the attacking position. Well, let's come to the third branch. The branch, I mean, it might be really hard to take count of which branch are we talking about, which point we branch. So yeah, let me make moves back and let's see here. Yeah. So we have made these moves, and the first branch that we talked about was bishop coming out and then castling thing going on. The second branch we talked about was pawn to a3. The third branch, this so pawn to a3 is the most supported branch by the engine, but the most tricky branch might be playing bishop to d3. Now bishop to d3 is kind of a game bit. Why? Because who was supporting this pawn? This pawn was being supported by this pawn, this knight, sorry, yeah, this pawn, this knight, and this queen. Three defenders. And who was attacking it? This pawn, this knight, and this queen. Three attackers. So the situation was in a ceasefire. But because this bishop has come here, white might assume that taking on d4 is a good option, and he'll definitely take on d4. So yeah, that goes great. e4 pawn. What does white reply with? The best option for white is to castle, but if white does reply with cx d4, then I can't really take it back with the knight. Why? Because let's say I took it back with the knight took me back with the knight. If I decide to take on the knight with my queen, then I am losing completely because this check, it's a discovery check. I can't really do anything with my queen. No matter what I do, my queen dies. So yeah, that was a pretty good game bit. Because I mean, okay, at this point, once you have traded with the knights, you might actually see, okay, yeah, there is this thing hanging. But while trading with while trading the pawns and, in fact, while trading the knight, you might not see it because it is one move deeper. The game bit is one move deeper. So yeah, bringing out this bishop isn't really harmful because you are not having any free pawn. It's in fact a developmental move. But we do really are desperate about this d4 pawn. We want to have it. What do we do? I mean, sure, c4 might look like a good option to push away the bishop. That's fine. But we can see that this pawn is hanging. Why not take it? We have seen the game bit hanging here. So how do we defend that? Well, I could make the move C bishop to d7 so that I have blocked this bishop check, and that entire discovery thing is completely destroyed. Well, you could do it, and white might decide to castle. That is probably the second best move for white. And once white decides to castle, um, okay, fine, I'll take it. You'll take it, and sorry, yeah, I'll exchange, you'll exchange, and I'll exchange. And till here, everything is fine. In fact, black is even winning a little. So, yeah, you are at an advantage. But if white brings out his knight, you don't have to be too greedy. If you decide to be too greedy, then it's a bad option. If you decide to take on e5, then the game might change a little. White will equalize the game. In fact, even win. I don't know. Because now rook to e1 is actually a bad move for you, because rook to e1 is targeting my queen and then it's targeting my king, and knight can take, if let's say rook comes to e1 and I push out my queen to somewhere else, then knight takes on d5, then I can't really take on d5 because my king is pinned and stuff like that. So you will be in a bad situation if you take on e5. So rather, don't take on e5 and make some different moves. So if that is, if taking on e5 is a bad option, what else option do we have? Well, firstly, don't be greedy and decide not to take on e5. Now, what do you think? Well, one option might be to maybe bring out the bishop to do something, but that might be not so good, because this b5 square is what is problematic to me, because this knight can come here and attack to my queen. This bishop can come here and really threaten my bishop and try to exchange, and uh, I mean, I'm really giving white a good tempo to come to b5. So that is what I try to prevent. I play the move a6. That is the most, uh, I don't know, peaceful way of dealing with all this aggression. And once we have made this move, then white doesn't really have many options. Like one of them might, you might assume, okay, okay, I'll bring out the bishop, threaten the queen, but no, you bring out the bishop, I take on the pawn, because now this entire rook thing doesn't even hold. So I'm even winning more. So I won't really bring out the bishop. What else could I do? Maybe bring out my queen, because I think that is probably what else. I mean, queen e2, or maybe make the move g3, or maybe make the move rook to e1. Sorry, g3 is here. Yeah, and maybe make the move rook to e1 and stuff like that. So, yeah, white doesn't really have that many options, and you could, really play around with them. And once this thing has happened, then you really want your rook to come to this open file to target this knight, and I mean, rook sitting on the a file isn't really helpful anyways. So yeah, let's bring out our rook, and what will white do? White also doesn't really have. I mean, this is the position where you don't have really that many options, and development is also kind of slow, and the game is a little intensed, and like even what the engine is showing me, the engine is showing me that the best move for white is the a3. Like these are all waiting moves to play. He's showing a3, then you'll play g6, and then you'll make a fianchetto shadow, and try to take on this pawn finally. So these are the lines along which the game will continue, and this won't be counted in opening. Now the game is upon you. But you have a decent position. In fact, black has a winning position to play from here. Well, we come to another branch. But this branch is not even from where we started, it's from even behind. So, yeah, we are in the advanced French, but from here we like once we have moved knight to sorry c5, we had different options, right? Well, this is what we are playing to play now, knight to f3, and that is the Nimshwitz system. So from here we'll continue on in different lines, and let's see some of them. So yes, once we are into the Nimshwitz system, the best reply for black is to take on the pawn. Well, that is pretty simple. There might be two variants of it now. White will definitely take on this pawn, so that is the ideal thing that white will do. But what will he take it back? The queen or the knight? Ideally, the knight is the better option, but if white does decide to take with the queen, Then what options do we have? Well, we have a pretty solid thing to do. Develop your knight, push the queen back, even attack the queen. And for white, what could white do? Well, white might be, you know, uh, quite clever. He might develop his own piece, pin my piece, defend his own piece in one single move. So that looks good on the surface, right? Well, what could you reply with? Well, this is a solid reply. If bishop takes knight, then knight takes bishop, and the same thing continues. But white isn't really scared of my knight coming here, so he'll maybe castle. If he castles, then like this is just one line that I'm trying to show. These are the general moves. If he does decide to take on my knight, then rather than taking the bishop with the knight or the bishop itself, we can also take it with the pawn. Taking it with the pawn is also a good option. Taking it with the knight is also a good option. One attacks the queen and one really solidifies my defense. I decide to take it with the pawn. And so, yeah, that is more or less how the game will look like right now. Uh, if he does decide to take on this, then I can make these moves and it is fine. The white won't really take on, he won't really, with the queen, take on my c pawn because there will be problems for him. Taking on the c pawn immediately loses in the game very much. Why? Because knight to c5, and now he doesn't really have any option to go. I mean, yeah, it's so weird, but it's so cool that knight to c5 does really trap the queen. I mean, look at the squares he can go. He can't go here. He can't go here. He can't go here. He can't go here. He doesn't have any option of going behind. All of these squares are blocked. All of these squares are blocked. And he can't come here. He can't come here. He can't come here. He can't come here. The queen trapped in the middle of the board. This is, I mean, this is one of the coolest things that I've seen. And that is why c5 is maybe even a great move. I don't know if the engine shows like that. But c5 is a really good move. Right? Take on it and block the entire queen. The queen is trapped in the middle of the game and you have won it. So yeah, that is one cool variation of it. But even if he does not decide to do so, from here the game can continue on in different ways. Yeah, so if knight does try to take on d4, it might look a little boring, but yeah, that's what you have to do. Knight takes here, you come here, uh, both knights come out. It's the usual kind of opening that doesn't I mean, this is what you will do without learning particular openings, right? You will bring out your knights and bishops and whatnot. So yeah, that's what we try to do. And these are some moves that are usually played. Like white will try to bring his bishop out. You would try to defend it. If there is an exchange happening, then have do the exchange, maybe captured with the pawn or captured with the bishop. That's fine. That's all right. Um, yeah, what else could you do? So, like, uh, I mean, next you could come with queen to c7 and then try to attack on this pawn. What will he do? He'll try to, play f4 to defend on this pawn, but now you are attacking even more. Like, uh, it's 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 a decent opening. It's a decent structure that you have, and you can, continue on with your middle game from this. So, but now we have done these entire branches, but these branches came out of the advanced French variation. What if? What if we decide not to play advanced? What if we decide to play the best move that white could ever play in this position? And that is knight to c3. So yeah, this is the main line of the normal French variation, knight to c3. So yeah, you have particular options here. One which looks very prominent to me is maybe pushing bishop to b4 and pinning this knight. This is something we usually tend to do. Knight comes out, pin it. We don't want knight to run through. But currently here, the best move is to actually play knight to f6. Developing your own pieces rather than trying to shut them down. And you will be typically met with the similar thing. Bring your bishop here. So yeah, that is fine. In such scenarios, you could actually now pin this knight, and like this is the entire situation that goes on. You have pinned him, he has pinned you, and if exchange happens, then actually rather than taking it with the pawn, take it with the queen. Why? Because you have actually pinned this knight. This knight is not really harming my queen anymore. So yeah, I have taken the pawn. I'm attacking the bishop. This pawn is under threat, although this queen is here. But I'm planning to do something, and I have a really good tempo here. So he will usually not. If he is a good player, he will not take on d5. But if he does take on d5, remember not to take it with the e pawn, but rather with the queen. So another line could be to not to take on the pawn, but rather to move e5. E5 looks actually dangerous to me. Why? Because well, my knight is pinned, and now my knight is being threatened by a pawn. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? Right? Relax. You had simply gonna push his own bishop. So yeah, my knight is under threat. Your bishop is under threat. Move away. Now from here it's pretty standard. If he goes back, then push him further, and he'll go back here and then try to do something with that part. He will not usually go back. The best two moves are maybe to go back to e3 or to go back to d2. If he does go back to d2 or if he does go back to e3, I want you to realize that here an important square is e4. E4 is such an important square because this knight is pinned. It is not pinned currently, but it was pinned before, right? So, yeah, let's say that this bishop actually comes to e3, for example. Then the square is even more important. This knight is pinned. I'm attacking this knight, and I have a very dominant central square for my knight, and I'm controlling so many squares together. So, e4 is a move that you should think about naturally. But yeah, if he does decide to go back to, let's say, d2, then you don't directly play e4. You first exchange the knight for the bishop and then play e4. Because if you don't, then he'll maybe try to take on here. But this queen coming up here is also fine. So yeah, that was one line of it when he decides to play to e5. So yes, another branch, another time. Yeah, so the move e5 is actually pretty good for white in all branches of it. We had the bishop out earlier and then later moved e5. That's fine. And then this particular move where he's just trying to threaten my pawn, and I guess it isn't really necessary to tell you that knight will go to d7 and that will be the best move because there is pretty much nothing else to do. You can't go here, you can't go here. Um, Going back is not an option, and I don't know, these other places are occupied, and this square is bad. Takes, and what's the point? You are losing the diamond. So knight to d7 is pretty straightforward. And what will happen next is actually these things will be more likely to happen. In fact, c5 is a very powerful move for black. C5 is something that will come in many different variations of the French defense or advanced French defense or classical or any other variation. C5 is something you want to hold on to and move when really required. Again, we won't really take on C5 because no point on taking on C5. I'm developing my bishop and the opponent is losing his center. Why would the opponent do that? So yeah, this thing can happen. And then again, development of pieces is our classical ideology while developing theories. So we have brought out our knights, and this bishop can also come out. It's pretty normal. Now, at this point, whenever this bishop comes out and my c pawn is already out, I always have this chance to bring my queen here and then try to attack on this pawn. This is really difficult to defend because the bishop is already out. What else could you do? So yeah, you bring your queen out, and here the opponent might have some moves to make. But if opponent forgets about this pawn and makes some move like this, then you can actually do capture on this pawn. And I mean, you might feel that okay, it's a little risky because this rook is going to come here, and I won't have many escape options. But the only escape option that you have is queen to a3, and queen to a3 is fine. So yeah, that is what you do. You bring it here, let it come, and queen to a3. What could black do? Well, what could white do? So maybe white can actually he'll try to push away my knight because this knight is irritating to him here, and if he does decide to do so, then you can have maybe push this try to push this bishop back. If he takes on my knight, I'll take on the bishop. And yeah, this is a fine position. Yes, these pawns are doubled, but you can see that these pawns are supposed to be exchanged, so they'll get singled out. Even if they don't, this is a really good position. We have developed our pieces, and I mean, it might look difficult to play in this because our queen is kind of stuck in one corner of the board, but it's still a fine position. It's not bad. In fact, I think it is more advantageous for black than white. Instead of actually bringing out the bishop, he could have brought out the knight. That's also fine. Attacking my queen, but you can obviously see why it's a bad move. Boom. So yeah, although my queen is going into the corner of the board and not really paying much attention, yeah, not really being safe, but it is capturing pawns on pawns. We are two pawns up. Sure, this rook is coming, but this rook is dying. I mean, choose one. So of course he won't really give me a fork right now, and the best move for white will be to actually defend himself. And that's what we'll do. We'll also defend ourselves. We don't really care about this check incoming. We'll come here and he'll have to go back. There is no other option for him. And the moment he actually decides to go back, we'll maybe push the knight behind. A6. A6 is fine, right? And where can knight? Where can the opposition knight go? He will have to go to maybe D6 here. Trade. Then we'll trade back and maybe even come here and then take on this pawn or something like that. So yeah, that's our entire plan around how we're going to play. So maybe let's just try it out to see if there is anything else we could find here. So yeah, these moves happened, and then I'll push for c4. C4 is really good for me, and for the opposition also, knight to e5 is great. He's trying to fork me again. I won't be forked. I'll just come back. In fact, I can also take on this knight, maybe with this one or this one. It won't really ruin my position too much. So, but yeah, I'll just come back and continue on with the middle game. It's really out of the scope of opening here. But yeah, this variation was also something that I wanted to show you. One where the opposition decides to play e5 and the game continues along that. Well, there was one trap here. You know, a very subtle move for white can be to play a3. A3 is so deceptive simply because now taking the pawn on d file is not an option. I mean, do try to take it. Boom. You are simply losing so horribly that you'll actually resign in the next move of white. White can go knight to a4 and boom, your queen is trapped. You do have an entire file for you to move, but in the entire file, you don't have any possible square where you are safe. You are not safe here, 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 you are not safe here. The file is gone, this point is gone, this point is gone. You can't take on the rook, you can't come here, you can't come here, you can't come here. I mean, it's so horrible for the queen to be trapped in an open space. We saw once when the queen was trapped for white side in an open space, and once when the queen is trapped on the black side in an open space. Again, let's retrace ourselves a little. So yeah, one option for white was a3, and you learned in a3 that do not take on the pawn on b2. But now, what if white decides to make this move? Okay, this is also, pretty scary for black because you're attacking my queen in a very corner of the board and I don't really have much options to go to. I'll just give you a check. A check is fine for me. And that is what I do. And, a usual reply will be to just block it with this pawn, which is like at this point, all I want to do is, develop more of my pieces. And I see my bishop just hanging here. So I try to reinforce my pawn with this pawn and, open up this diagonal for bishop, which later plans on exchanging it with the other light squared bishop and, get something moving in the game. So yeah, it is at this point that White really understands what I'm trying to do, and White kind of hopes to make some different moves, and That is why in my pretty much in my next move, I want to prevent being played by c4, so I'll play c4 myself. That is what I'll do. So, like, what White's best move might be to go back, bishop back to d2. And the idea is that he'll move c4, and I don't want him to move c4, so I'll move c4 myself. So yeah, this is one thing that is going to happen. And after that, after that, he might try to maybe push my queen back. Okay, fine. I have, two, three options. One is to actually go in on the off. But that isn't really great for me because again, c4 is coming up. So that is something that I will not do. I will not bring my queen back because bringing my queen back means that I will be under a lot of pressure. I don't have any more squares to go to, and I might get trapped. So the best move here is this: sack your knight. Sack your knight. There is no issue in sacking your knight. Even if he takes, uh, even if he takes, then I'll take it with the bishop. You can always try to exchange, but I'll exchange it back. So yeah, if bishop does take on d4, then I'll take on you, and you are under check, and the king has to move away, and I'm really in a good position right now. He won't defend it with the queen because then I'll take his knight. So that is not really an option for him. But for me, I have a good position. Yes, I am down 1 point in material, but look at my board. I have all 8 pawns here. All 8 of them are in a really good position, and there are no issues for me. In fact, if white does not decide to take on the bishop, and he does try to decide to come here, then even then I can take him, and he can try to take me. uh but yeah, that's the usual thing that will go on. So yeah, after we are done with our main line with knight to c3, let's go back, and let's not make white play knight to c3. There are other boring variations of it. One of them is just take on d5. So yeah, e takes d5, e takes d5 is a really boring way to play the French defense because now nothing else will happen. Knight to f3, knight to c6, and he'll bring his knights out, and I'll do the same, and then bishops are out, and then uh, castling then occurs on both sides, then queens are out. The very usual old kind of opening system. So that is why we don't really discuss what happens if white decides to take on d5. But there are other variations that might be interesting. So yes, one another variation is called the Tarash variation, and here knight comes out to d2. It might look a little awkward, but it does the work. This pawn is what needed strength. I gave him strength. I have brought my knight out. I have developed my piece. The very usual reply from black will almost always be c5. C5 is actually a power blow in French defense, and we are planning to attack on both the pawns. Fair. So if this thing happens and white really tries to save himself with c3, don't allow him to save himself with c3. Keep exchanging. If white does decide to take on the pawn with the knight, I'll give him a check. So this check cannot be defended in the number of ways you might assume it can be defended. Knight to c3 is good, but bishop to b d2 is not good. Why? Take on the pawn. It's a free pawn. So bishop to d2 is a bad idea. Rather, knight to c3 is what you always want to play in such situations. And once this happens, then development of pieces continues on, and nothing else goes wrong. Um, and at this moment, you do want to realize that once you have played these particular moves, you do want your bishop to lie on this diagonal. So you do want this fiancé chateau. So this fiancé chateau is really good because white will is very likely to castle on the short side, and this bishop does really belong here. Don't bring it to d7 because d7 is a place for the knight. Um, in anyway, keeping the bishop on d7 really blocks half the power of the bishop. It's only this half that he'll play in. So yeah, that's bad idea. bring out your knight to d7, and you are really in a good position now. And now, in fact, might be a good idea to even exchange the knight with the bishop or something like that. So yeah. So yeah, a few more variations will be considered when e4, e6, and then d4 happened. But the opponent might not always reply my French defense in the normal way. He might come up here. So yeah, this move is also pretty common, and it is not bad actually. So I think it might get a little tricky if you have dealt only with the d4 cases. In such situations, what you tend to do is actually push d5 nevertheless. D5 is the move that you were preparing for. E6 is not, worthless. So that is why you will always play d5 in such situations. And now the opponent might reply in different ways. He might, bring this knight out or push d4. If he has pushed d4, then it's the same old French defense knight variation. But if it's the knight to c3, then it's the two knights variation of French defense, and we can actually learn a little from here. So in this position, what you want to play is knight to f6. Why? Because you are now targeting both this pawn and defending this pawn. One shot, two targets. It's a pretty decent move, knight to f3. What might your opponent try to do is, try to push my knight back and develop himself. This square is also, safe because this knight is here and stuff like that. So we'll just drop back. We'll drop back, we'll attack on this in hopes that, okay, sometime later we'll attack more. Um, and now your opponent can actually play some different moves. One of them might be to bring this knight back to e2 and then to play c5, c4, sorry. But then you can actually right now itself, if your opponent tries to play d4, then you can reply with c5, and that is a pretty good move, right? So yeah, that is what we do. C5 is our actually the power move in the entire French defense. So hold on to C5. Again, if your opponent tries to exchange, you can directly take it back. Or in fact, if your opponent does try to exchange, you don't have the urgency to take on this one right now. Wait for it. Bring this knight here. There is you have your development going on. He can't really defend it this way because I'll like bishop to e7 is not the correct defense, right? I have two pieces attacking on this one. So yeah, that goes without say. We can anytime take on knight takes c5 or bishop takes c5. But yes, if something like this also happens, then maybe, just wait for it. Just keep developing until your opponent fumbles because your opponent can't come here. I'll take on this pawn. Your opponent doesn't have really many options to play. So, but regardless, if this does come up, then knight to c6 is a good option and you can continue your game from here. Also, he might decide not to take on my c5 pawn, and that is also completely fine. In fact, if you see, this position is very much similar to the advanced variation. There's a pawn on e5, there's a pawn on e4. I have pushed c5, and I'm hoping for an exchange so that I can bring my bishop here. We have seen this already, but there is a difference. The difference is that this knight was not here the last time. This pawn was here the last time, and that is why defending on the d4 square was easier. It had two supporters, but right now there's just the knight and the queen, and my pawn is attacking. So yeah, white is worse off in this situation if he does try to play with the knights. So yes, what else could white do? Well, this move is also, pretty threatening. The knight is here, the bishop is here, and trying to attack my queen. But is it really threatening? It's not. Why? Because the moment you bring your bishop away from here, we have seen this in the previous branches as well, that this pawn remains hanging. And because my power move is c5, I have usually moved c5 by the time you have made the move bishop to g5 or bishop to f4 or anything like that. And that is why I have always the option of queen b6. And queen b6 is it handles escaping from this bishop threat while attacking on this pawn. And that is why the engine shows a slight shift in the game. It shows that black is kind of winning now. And in fact, it does attack b6. B2, sorry, and also it attacks D4. Really giving me the edge to play here. And at this moment, he does have to take on DXC5. Otherwise, I'll ruin the game for him. So he does have to take DXC5, and now I can take here, and I can clearly see that this advantage is here. He has to bring his queen out because he has to defend on this pawn. But you now have various options. In fact, one of the options is to let it exchange. It's the best move that engine shows me that okay, bishop x f2 is probably the best move. I'm not taking on this pawn. This pawn is free right now, but you have better developmental advantages. In fact, this pawn is let's try what happens. So yeah, we took on f2. Of course, queen takes on f2. What next? What are our moves? One move is to exchange the queen, but that will be pretty stupid to play because we gave up our bishop for a pawn. So not that, but rather take on this pawn now. How? I mean, imagine, look at it. What happened? You took the bishop and you took the pawn and gave your bishop, and you might see that okay, I am at a loss of material, but no. Firstly, you took another pawn, so you are at loss of one material point, and now you have a fork of a rook and a bishop, and of a rook and a knight, and he can't really handle it. So yeah, no matter what he does, uh, maybe bring the king to d2 in order to save him, and once I take the rook, he'll try to develop his bishop and then, threaten to me. But despite of it, I'll take on the rook, and the game can go on from here. Bishop to b5 is fine, and yeah, I'll have the other rook as well, and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, that was the thing about the opening, and then you could go on till the middle game or till the end game from here, and I think Black is playing pretty decent here. There is one last branch that I would like to show you, and then you are done with the French Open. So yeah, let's go back to our last branch. Last branch actually begins from here. So yeah, we have played e4, e6, and then d4, and then d5, and then white decides to bring his bishop here. So yeah, this is another variation of the French defense. And what do you want to do here? Well, the most powerful move always will be to play c5. C5 gets really the game going in terms of, exchanges and battles and stuff like that. And from here, you do really want to, exchange onto pieces. So yeah, if he does try to take here, it will be a bad move for him because I'll take on this one. Bishop will take on this one. I'll take on queen. Queen gets exchanged. White loses his ability to castle, and I gain on this pawn as well. So yeah, my bishop is developed. The opponent's bishop is also developed fine, but the opponent's castling rights are gone. And yeah, I have a pawn ahead, and I have more central control than the opponent does. So this is an advantageous position for black from here. And in fact, even this pawn is hanging, and he has a lot of stuff to defend. And lastly, if they decide to take on the other pawn from here, like earlier they took on this pawn, what if they take on this pawn? Even then, it is fine. Take, let him take. And this position is good for you. Why? Because if you have your pieces developed, you have more central control again. White, and you have not lost anything, and the game will continue on in the same exact way as it used to in your classical openings, and you can continue your game on with that. It is a little boring. It's the exchange variation, but deal with it. Exchange variations does get a little boring because you have a lesser number of pieces on board. So that was it about today, guys. This was the French defense, from whatever I could tell you. We learned branches within branches within branches, and how to deal with specific tactics, and maybe queen traps at some places, forks at some places, and everything. And it might take a time to get hang of it, but you will get hang of it if you practice it more and more. And I think French defense is really, something that the opponent doesn't really expect you to play, especially at the beginner levels. So if you want to watch more such openings or end games, middle games, or anything related to chess strategies, do subscribe to Chess Gaja and like this video. And if you want to watch anything in particular, then do drop us a comment and we'll make a video on it. Thank you.